3, 2, 1. Never ever gonna not be awkward.
No, I think it's impossible.
Welcome to another Monday of
No one gets away with anything.
Today with you we are
Jose Rafael Chanetti and...
Ariana Lopez.
Hi, welcome back.
Hello. You know when today when I arrived at Jose's house, he opened the door for me and he was like, hello. And I was like, Oli. And he was like, hi. And I didn't remember we used to start our episodes like that.
I didn't notice we did that.
You did it today.
I didn't notice that I did that today.
And then you said it and I was like, wow, I'd forgotten. It used to be a reflex and it was not this time.
Yeah.
And I think for you it was the same.
It was weird, but it wasn't... I don't know. We used to start every episode like that.
We've had different stages of either the Sharpay, hello, brr, brr, ma. That one was good.
Yeah.
And then we had the hello, hi, and now we're serious people
who sit down,
who don't say those things anymore.
You're probably not going to see it, but before every episode there's a 35-minute delay between us start to record and then sitting down.
And then we stand up because we forgot something, and then we sit down again, and then we talk about what we're gonna talk, and then we discuss it again, and then we forgot something until we finally managed to do it. And then we start recording and we did it wrong.
I made Ariana coffee before we started.
Yeah, but he made me coffee. I bought bread. He was taking some lemonade.
Yeah, and I was drinking lemonade in a wine glass, which...
Amazing. I think it's a well-deserved
wrong
treat.
fruit, though. It's supposed to be grapes. That was the worst joke I've ever made. Ever.
Excelente. Muy bien. Bueno.
So, Ariana y yo estábamos discutiendo que vemos el mundo distinto. And this might sound stupid, but we do. And it's weird. And we don't exactly know why we see the world differently.
So basically, I was reading this book that Jose recommended called Snoop. And he mentioned it at the beginning of our podcast, first episodes. And this book basically explores people's personality through their belongings. It's how their room is decorated, the things that they keep, what they don't keep, what they portray to others, what they decide to portray for themselves. So basically, I was going through the book, and there's a point in which it starts bringing up personality tests. And it's sort of it gives you 5 statements, and you have to put a score according to the way or the degree in which you relate to those sentences.
Whether you agree or disagree with a statement.
Exactly. So since it's Jose's book, I was going to them and the scores were there. So it's I basically had an insight to everything that Jose thought about himself by the time that he read the book. So I was I think it'd be interesting for me to just do the same numbers.
That is terrifying.
You just gave me this thing, go ahead and read it, and then I was reading and I was this is not a book, this is a diary situation.
Yes, yeah. I do have to say this book is recommended by somebody else. Bernardo, you're a genius. This book is amazing, and it led me into psychology very deeply. But yes, there's essentially little tidbits about literally who I am as a person to my core.
So I decided to just not look at Jose's numbers
at
the beginning. So I could do my own, I did my own test for myself, and then I compared. And right after I did it, I literally called Jose and I told him, I know what we're going to talk about next episode. We have to talk about this.
And it was perfect because for the longest time, I'd known about my scores and I had, researched a little bit about it, and I had done a more standardized test that, takes all this into consideration. And then just that week we were doing this, I retook my test. I started rereading it, and I was like, whoa, this is really important, and this is talking a lot about stuff that's really, about how I see the world,
and about who you are.
2 years ago. So and just then she called me and she brought it up, and I was like, that's
interesting.
Como diría mi madre, no es casualidad, es causalidad. So there's a reason for it, and that's why we're gonna do.
So
what we're gonna do today.
It turns out that I thought it was very innocent, simple book with a little test. But then Jose was if we're gonna talk about personalities, you might as well do the same test that I did, which is the one that he was talking about.
Yeah.
So he not only made me do the test, you have to pay for the test. But anyways,
I blackmailed her into it.
And we'll walk you through both of our tests.
Yeah, we're going to try to walk you through the test. We're going to try to actually make it tedious. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for us. So if it's an aspect of our personality, there generally is a very funny story attached to that, or a very serious story attached to it. So vamos a irnos un poco por ese lado de intentar explicar nuestra personalidad. And the idea is that you maybe can do it for yourselves at some point. This book is a really basic one, but if you really want the deep one, it's in a webpage that we will link below, because again, remember, we're on YouTube now.
Yes.
Awesome.
And before we start, what we wanted to point out is the fact that we are so intrigued about doing this test is because Jose and I have like very similar personalities for some things, but at the same time they can be very divergent for some others. And it's very interesting to see how we see the world differently or similarly, and how is that portrayed in our lives. That's what caught my attention in the first place, is like where I put myself a very high score, Jose could have put himself a very low score or the exact same one.
Yeah, and the advantage of this test is that it gives you like world averages and averages for men and for women. And so it gets really interesting, like, oh, I am more agreeable than every single person on earth or something like that. So
And also, what does that mean? Because it's like, for example, I used to associate agreeableness with something like completely positive. It's like, never was I taught that someone who's agreeable is not necessarily a quality for them to be like that.
yeah, and the lesson behind this is that generally speaking, I think it's something like men and women are the same in like 60% of their personality. Like the average is more or less everybody's the same. But in the big differences, when you have people that are in the extreme side of these, then you get interesting results, okay? This is my dad actually saying goodbye because he's going to go to work. He is watching us record very dutifully. And so I think with that, we can start explaining a little bit.
Exactly what this test is about.
Yeah, so first I'm going to start with an anecdote, a really weird anecdote that when I was about... I think everyone has had this experience where you're like, well, women should be more feminine, men should be more masculine. And then you're also told that, men should express their emotions more. So they should be in touch with their feminine side. Everybody's heard that before.
Men or women?
Yeah, men should be in touch with their feminine side.
But I think that's also a new thing.
It is definitely a new thing, but it's kind of like whenever you're talking about like you're in like high school or middle school and you're like, what kind of guys do you like? And it's like, oh, do you like the classic macho guy, or do you like the knows his feminine side?
For example, like in line with that, which I completely agree, I think being sensitive is something very attractive of men. It's a thing of, I have a couple gay friends from my class, and I swear there's no night in which we go out that they don't get at least one girl after them.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah,
it's really amazing. And it's like, I talked to one of them, who I love, and he's like, really, I have a talent for girls. It's like they come after me and I don't even know. I don't want it anymore. I don't know what to do about it. And I'm like,
if I had been straight,
Yeah. And it's like, I tell him, it's like, Julio, the fact that you're like so in touch with your emotions and everybody else's emotions makes you very attractive, especially for, a woman.
Yeah. Because you're looking for somebody to see what you see, and that's always attractive. If somebody can tell what you're thinking, it's like, oh. It can either be so good that it's creepy, or it can be so good that it's like...
that it's interesting and it keeps you, like, wondering.
Yeah, and it can be, like, I'm watching my brother bought Crunchyroll.
What is that?
Crunchyroll, for those of you who don't know, Ariana included.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. It's the Netflix of anime.
Okay.
And so I've been watching a lot of anime lately, and I watched one called Elite, the Classroom of the Elite. And the guy's a sociopath. Like, the main character is a sociopath. But everybody likes him because he understands everybody. Like, he can coldly, like, understand everything that's going on around him. And that's kind of the allure of people who are super sensitive. It's like, oh, you know what's going on. You can understand what I feel, even if I don't understand what I feel. Wrong. Understand your own feelings. Come on, people.
Because also it's confusing. Because then somebody can come and just tell you, this is what you're feeling, this is who you are. And if you're not sure about who you really are, it can absolutely mess up with your mind.
Exactly. That's why we recommend using an actual test. There's a lot of them out there. There's the 16 personalities that everybody's done, you know, like, which is like protagonist, inventor, leader, etc. So all of those, that's called the Myers-Briggs test, and it's not really, at least it's not the most scientifically sound in terms of how it was made, okay? And there's this paper, this test, and it's called the Big Five Personality Test, okay? And it's an acronym called OCEAN, which is openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Those are the 5 scales that you have. 5 dimensions would be the proper way to say it. 5 dimensions of personality.
And something very particular about this test, and it's something that they discuss in the book, there's 2 ways in which you can analyze the personality, and one of them is putting them into a category or a label that like fixes them into a box, and another one is placing it in a sort of spectrum, which is what this test does. So there's 2 things. First of all, a test is never going to completely tell you who you are.
Exactly.
And there's things about this test or any test that you do that you can actually agree or disagree with, and that's fine, because in the end, the person who should know yourself best is you.
Exactly. And this is kind of like, I recommended once while we were in like the first or second episode, TED Talk by a man whose last name is Little, Dr. Little.
Oh, that one's super good.
Yeah, it's a really good TED Talk, and it's about personality, and it's how these personality tests are like analyzing from one level of perspective, and that level of perspective is like you are different from everybody in the world, in the planet, and it's something like all humans are the same. Some humans are you are different from some humans. You are similar to some humans, but you are unique as a person, and that's something that we have to take into consideration here. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, how agreeable, disagreeable, open or closed you are. You can literally change all of it with experience. You can basically move away from the natural tendencies that you might have, that the test might tell you about.
And one last thing before we start, so Jose and I were discussing, it's what's the point of knowing?
Yeah.
Of knowing every one of these things, especially acknowledging that any trait, for example, what we were saying before about agreeableness, can be either connotated as something positive or something negative, depending on where you stand in the spectrum, right? So you're never gonna have a personality which is completely positive, how people commonly conceive it, for example. So the point of this test is not looking at the things that you think that are wrong and trying to change them. Is trying to understand who you are, so you can just live your life in a way that will make your personality achieve their fullest potential.
Or can make an advantage in your life.
Exactly. So maybe you're trying, and this is something I was telling Jose, it's like, there was a point in my life, and maybe still, where I was trying to be someone specifically, right? And now that I've changed and things in my life have changed, I've noticed that I'm not necessarily that person. And at the beginning, it seemed and it felt like something that was wrong, but it's not. It's just like, you have to understand who you are so you can take decisions that will allow you to seize your strengths. It's like,
definitely.
Maybe I was trying to achieve strengths that I really did not like have, and you can try to develop them. There's nothing wrong with it, but the best thing that you can do also for yourself, it's look at what you have and do the most out of that. That's something beautiful that you can do. And also look at the things that you have that maybe are a bit of your weaknesses, and there's something, there's a lot that you can take out from that as well.
Yeah, the other thing is, you're going to play a lot of different roles in your life. You're going to be a mother or a father, but you're also going to be, sometimes you're going to be the antagonist. Like today I had to do a debate, and, I had to be the devil's advocate. And sometimes you are going to have to be a disciplinarian, and sometimes you're going to have to be a teacher. And those are things that are suited for different personalities. Like if you're a soldier, then being disagreeable is super good, because it means that you're not as affected by what's happening as everybody else, or that you at least can get through it. Or if you're going to be a disciplinarian, then being orderly, conscientious, and low in neuroticism is probably very, very good for you. But in the other case, if you're going to be a mother or a caretaker, if you're agreeable, and then you are also open to experience, and you can probably get into the child's imagination and world a lot easier than a person who's completely disagreeable and who is not open to experience in the least. So this is all more or less a deck of cards. It doesn't matter which card you get, it's more how you
how you use
it.
them.
Yeah.
So let's start, because otherwise we're just gonna keep talking and talking, and then we never got to the actual test.
Is that a dig at me? Are you saying
No,
that I
I'm
can't
saying
stop
it's both of
talking?
our faults. Fair enough. So the first trait.
Oh, wait, before we start, one thing that we're going to do is that every time we talk about a trait, we're going to say something funny, like a story related to it, because if not, this is going to be very long. So, or at least it can be very long. It's just going to be very tedious if we don't. So we're going to go into agreeableness.
So I'm going to talk about this one.
Go ahead.
Fair enough. Why am I going to talk about this one? Because I'm in the 80th percentile of agreeableness, which means that...
What does that mean?
Out of 100 people, I am more agreeable than 80 people, which is a considerably high rate.
Yeah.
While Jose is in the 46th percentile.
Yes, that means that there's 54 people in a room of 100 who are more agreeable than I am.
So basically, all of the positive sides of agreeableness get to me way harder than Jose's. Than to Jose's, and also all the negative sides of being agreeable get to me harder than they get to you.
Exactly, and it's something like okay, so each one of these characteristics divides into two more. So agreeableness is made up of two other things, and they are compassion and politeness. Okay, so compassion would be how empathetic you are, how much you can be aware of other people's emotions, and then politeness is how much you respect authority and rules. Okay, so it means that there's a positive side to respecting rules, but there's a negative side to respecting rules, and then there's a positive side to being super compassionate, but there's a bad side to it. Yeah. Same in the other side of the spectrum. If you're super low in compassion, then hey, everybody probably hates you because you don't take their feelings into consideration. And if you're super impolite, then you're probably rude. So just...
Yeah, we'll just basically how they define the positive things about agreeableness is someone who's compliant, who's nurturing, kind, naively trusting, and conciliatory, which means that they try to avoid conflict and find resolutions. But this precisely leads them to avoid conflict and maybe hide their opinions, which is something that I can relate to maybe. While on the other hand, if you're not agreeable or you're more into the other side of the spectrum, it's more like you're stubborn, you're dominant, you're harsh, you're skeptical, competitive, and even predatory, which is what Jose was telling before. Which, also has its positive sides, because if you're in an environment that it demands a lot of your adrenaline, I don't even know how to say that. It's like for you to be super competitive.
In an island and you need to hunt to survive. Damn, if you're, disagreeable, you're probably good.
So, for example, for me, when I got to Spain, it amazed me how people just saw me as a very loving person. That's that's the first thing that people used to tell me, or they saw about me. It's like, you're nice, you see? And that was the beautiful thing at the beginning, because people just saw me as a source of happiness and love. But for example, something that also happens often is that in my relationships, both friends, work not maybe as much as school, but in intimate relationships in which I care a lot about the other person, I really, really struggle to say the things that bother me. So it's like, I'm going to keep them to myself, and I'm going to shut down until I expect this is something happened before. I would just be until I was expecting the other person to come and ask me oh, how are you feeling? So yeah. I felt like I had the right to say how I felt, right?
Okay. So you need to ask permission.
Exactly, because I'm scared that the other person is going to take it wrong, and then I'm going to lose them, or I'm going to make them feel bad. And if somebody feels bad because of something I said, even if I am right, it's going to make me feel worse.
Okay, yeah.
That is something I'm working on, and that I acknowledge.
Okay, go ahead, tell a story.
My romantic relationship, that's for me the hardest thing to deal with is, first, I am very sensitive, right? So anything can just trigger me very easily, right? And there's things that I've learned to understand, okay, this is something I can deal with on my own, but there's other things that, I can't. But it really, really, really scared me, or intimidated me, the idea of having to just come up to, my boyfriend and tell him look, you're doing this thing that makes me feel bad. because I know that's gonna make him feel bad, at least at the beginning, even if he changes his mind later, right? So knowing that he's not as happy as he could be because of something that I said, for me, it's counterproductive.
Yeah, no, and you basically tied your brain into a knot.
It's really not a good habit to have.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, I have a different case. So pull up your scores. So you have scores for the other two things, and so my compassion score is 93. So I'm in the 93rd percentile for compassion, which means that out of 100 people, I'm more compassionate than 93 of them.
Impressive.
Yeah, it is weird to think.
It's impressive.
It's weird to think about. And then my politeness is exceptionally low, which means I'm in the 3rd percentile in politeness.
So you're definitely not a people pleaser.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I do not mind telling people their shit to their face.
Well, exactly.
So I have this party trick, which is my story, that I am very good at getting to know people because I am very compassionate, and you will see later that I'm also very extroverted, and so it is very easy for me to get to know people, and I'm not a particularly closed off person, so I do tell a lot about my personal important stuff. You can tell Ariana and I met deeply talking in the podcast, so, and you've heard the first episode, so you know what I mean. I create relationships quickly in a way that I've realized today that it isn't probably the best way to do it. And then when I was
realized
in high school,
today?
I not today. I've realized for the last year and a half or something that what I'm about to say isn't precisely the best way to make friendships. And it's something like I'm talking to someone and I start building up an image of this person in my head, and it's generally very accurate, and at least in some things. And then there comes a point where it's like my mind is an easy bake oven, and then it gets to that point where it does the ding, and it's baked. It means I have some deep truth about you in my head, and all of my friends know this, and I've done this to most of my friends, and I literally sit them down and say, look, I love the relationship that we have, but I need to say this, which is the opposite of what you do. I need to say this, okay, and you're gonna listen to me, but I'm only gonna say this if you're okay with being destroyed, because this is a truth that will probably do some damage. You're okay with that? The people say, generally speaking, they're curious about it. So they say, yeah. And I then proceed to monologue for about an hour and ask questions. And then they almost always
end up being surprised.
Yeah, not surprised. The look is more like baffled. Like, what the fuck just happened? And it's good because it creates this thing where like, whoa, this person sees me. And I do, but there's a lot of negative there too. It's like, my brother has told me, like, why don't you try to create relationships page by page, you know, add dimension to it, you know, party by party or reunion by reunion or
without making the whole thing on your own. Yeah,
and the other thing is that people have some dark stuff going on. Genuinely, like every mind is a deep place, and it just so happens that when I do that, I absorb a lot of it, you know. There's sometimes you can feel, because I'm a very compassionate person, I can feel the depths of how bad that person's having it, and it affects me deeply. So I haven't done that. I hadn't done that for about a year and a half. I did it recently as a request from my friends, and I did it willingly, but
really? They ask you like...
we were in a get together, una reunión cualquiera, y estábamos con un grupo de gente nueva. So there was a couple of people that we didn't know at all.
Okay.
And we were talking about friendships and relationships and all of that. And, you know, collectively, all of my friends were like, hey, do you remember that thing you used to do? How about you do it to one of them? And I was like, well, like, I could, but like, and they were like, yeah, sure. Like, what is it? I want to know. And I was like, look, I'm just going to say that if I do say this, it'll fuck you up. Genuinely, because we were in the topic of conversations about friends and about personality, so it all mixed in correctly.
Okay.
And I think it was the proper circumstance.
Environment.
Yeah, but the poor guy.
My God, what did you tell him?
I told him the truth about himself, and I told him that, you know, he should probably get help in one way or another, and I told him that I know that he was never ever going to admit it, but that he could rest assured that at least from today on, somebody would know. And the guy broke. He was like, he left like he'd had a lobotomy. You know, he was like, oh my God. And he left, and I saw him like a week ago, last weekend. And he was like, man, you really did a number on me. And in a good way. Like, he told me, like, you know, I've thought about it a lot, and that's good. But, like, I didn't believe that you were going to, like, wow.
Actually say something. I don't remember if you ever did like
I
that
do every
scene.
time we talk.
Exactly. Yeah, that's. I was thinking, like, I think the whole podcast has been like an extension of it for us.
We do. We generally, before we record or after we record.
Honestly, we have like another podcast of like catching up.
We've had the conversation of like, we should record this and put it on like Patreon or something, because it's like more interesting than
It's like I literally opened the door of Jose's house, and then immediately, you know, it's like you have a very interesting conversation going on all the time. It's like I look at him and I'm like, what's going on? And then I ask, because sometimes I'm like, I know there's something there. And he does the same thing to me. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you today?
My approach generally has been to ask little questions, and then she'll go on to bigger ones and bigger ones and bigger ones, and it's really funny to watch. Just so you know, I do that.
Like, it's like for me, it's very easy and at the same time very hard to open up.
Yeah.
But interesting.
So that was my anecdote. I hope it was a good one.
Yeah.
It'll take us 3 hours to finish this episode.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Yes. So conscientiousness. Okay, conscientiousness is like your ability to work hard and organized. It's kind of like efficiency. If I had to put a word for it, it's like efficiency. Okay, so there's two aspects to it: industriousness and orderliness. I am 75th percentile, so I'm moderately high.
I'm moderately low. I'm in the 31st percentile.
Oh my God.
I'm really low.
Oh my God. Like, what are you doing with your life?
Industriousness, I'm just low.
So, yeah.
I'm just low.
Industrious. So this is the highest predictor of success. So if you're...
Thank you very much. I'm just going to leave it here. I'm going to try
Ariana will... I know. I'm kidding. But this is, again, remember, this is just a baseline. This is not... the truth of the matter. I'm sure.
What if I say I disagree with this one? You know?
Because do you write an enticing essay?
What do you mean?
Like, can you write an essay that blows somebody's socks off?
Moderately.
Yeah. And have you ever handed in something late?
Of course.
How regular is that lateness?
Not late, but right on time.
Okay.
It's very regular.
Well, but you're aware of your level of industriousness and you organize accordingly, which is fine.
That's why I disagree. To a certain extent, to a certain convenient extent. Fair enough. Go ahead, explain us.
It's the biggest predictor of success.
It's like you said it. I was like, oh, thank you very much for the compliment. I very much appreciate it.
The literature says it's the biggest predictor.
We'll see about it.
It's not the only predictor of success, but it's a big predictor of success because industriousness is how hard you can work, basically. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then the orderly, I'm 56th percentile in industriousness, which is I'm average. Mm-hmm. And then orderliness is how organized you are, and I'm high. I'm 84th percentile.
Oh my God, I'm 54th. I'm average.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'm a bit more of a chill person with this situation.
Well, I do want to point something out here, and I'm going to point it out on top again. Well, no, I'll say it later. But what's your story with conscientiousness? Do you have something?
The thing is, it's what I'm telling you. I think conscientiousness has evolved for me, you know, because like we were speaking, like I think it was last week, that we used to be, or at least I used to be someone who was trying very hard to be perfect student, you know, and I knew I had the formula deciphered. I knew what I had to do to be very good at school, very good at my extracurriculars, very good daughter, you know, what everybody wanted me to be, right? So for that, I was doing like so many things and I managed to do so many of them right. It's like I was doing guide tests, which consumed lots of my time for 3 years. I did MUN, International. I had the second best or third best score. Average in my class. Or it's like
GPA.
The more things that I had to do, the more efficient that I was. You see, it's like I woke up 7 a.m. I had 8 hours of school. Then I danced for around 3-4 hours. I got home, I ate, and I studied until 11 in the night that day, and I just kept going, and I was very good at everything that I was doing at that time, you know? And something that I often tell people that ask me, like, you know, what do you recommend when you're trying to just, like, seize opportunities when it comes to, like, academic and extracurricular stuff? For me, it's like, do not feel like you're doing, like, do not underestimate yourself and be like, I don't want to do too much. Because it's like, if you're doing things that you like, you're just going to use your time more efficiently than if you don't. Because it's like, if you just do 2 things because you want to have 5 afternoons free in your day, in your week, beautiful. But what you going to do in those 5 afternoons?
Sulk.
You can just like watch a movie or maybe sleep, take a nap, whatever, and it's fine. But if you had those afternoons busy, you would be doing something that's probably way more productive than that.
Yeah, I did the same thing in high school. You know, I spent my high school years busy in one way or another, and it was good for me. And I've told this before, when I got to university and I decided to be as busy as possible. I think it's not about being busy. I think it's about finding the optimum amount of free time. Mm-hmm. Because if you have too much free time, you get stupid. Mm-hmm. If you have too little free time, you die.
Yeah. So
it's getting in the middle of it where you can use your free time for interesting things that you actually like to do.
And that those, in the end, like those times to explore your bored self.
Yeah.
Is what leads to projects like this.
Yeah.
It's like the time that I had to read the book is what leads us to this episode.
Yeah.
And the time that you had to read the book is what took you to, like, you know, come up with the idea of the podcast in the first place.
I agree. I think that, again, one of the things that happens with these tests is that it's a way to look at the world. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Orderly people look at the world in terms of order. Mm-hmm. So I'm a person that if my desk, and it happens to me, this is my story, my desk has to be ordered. Like, I love my desk to be like super tidy and clean. And if it's not tidy and clean, I can't really work well.
And his room is literally perfectly tidy and clean.
I would say good. It's not perfectly tidy and clean, but it's good. And, well, thank you for the compliment. I need to learn how to take compliments. But my point is that industriousness, for example, is not something I'm particularly great at. I mean, I am the type of person that can hand something in late and be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, teacher, I handed it late," and that'll be that. Like, if they accept it, they didn't. If they don't accept it, it doesn't matter. But I've had times where my room has been a complete and absolute mess, and it's more overwhelming for me than it is for a different person, and that's the same thing for you. Maybe the reason why your conscientious is low is not that you can't work efficiently and diligently, but that working efficiently and diligently isn't a necessity for you. Yeah,
fair enough.
Or that being organized isn't necessarily something that it's in your top priority, but you still do it. Like, that could be a testament to how well you live your life. You know what I mean?
That's like, for example, last year my priority, no doubt, it was to make friends and build my social life in Madrid, because my family wasn't here anymore, so I needed, you know, some like emotional support. So I did not really care about what I did for school or like how organized my apartment was. Like, survival was make sure you go to as many parties as you can, meet as many people as you can, and just be out of your house. Go ahead and explore the world, you know? It's like, by then, toodaloo, my conscientiousness and my organization skills were definitely not one of my priorities. But this year, I'm like, okay, let's put this big puzzle and mess a bit more together. So I'm taking a lot more care of how clean I keep my apartment. Yeah. Because that's my, like, rest space now, you know?
Definitely.
There's one thing that's very hard for me. It's like taking notes in class and then keeping them organized. Even if I try super hard, it's impossible.
Yeah.
That, for me, I'll give it. But I do think that I'm someone who also tries to, like, plan time. You know, it's like I want to have my day structured, scheduled. It's like, I want to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to... So, like, I make sure that everything I need to do is inside the time frame that I have available.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any stories with conscientiousness?
No, I think my story is that. It's like how it changes for me. You know, it's like, I think you have more specific stories of everything, but for me, it's like a general reflection of how it has impacted my life in the past year.
That's very you.
Yes.
So the next one. I'm going to tell my story before we start.
Fair enough.
This one is called extroversion, and most of us already know this. We've discussed before that most people are actually ambiverts, which means that they're not either extroverted or introverted. They're somewhere in the middle. Extroversion and introversion is more or less like your social battery, and whether it's negatively charged or positively charged. So if you're an introvert, your battery charges by not being used, which means if you're not in a social situation and you're with yourself, your battery charges. And if you're an extrovert, your battery charges when you're with people, doing something social in some way. Okay? So my story is weird. I am very high in extroversion. I'm in the 89th percentile of extroversion, which means that I'm more extroverted than 89 people out of 100. And my enthusiasm is very high. It's 75%, moderately high. And then assertiveness is very high. Assertiveness is basically... So enthusiasm is how excited you are to go to the party and how... But assertiveness is how you take charge. You know, the type of people who are like take charge people who are like, I'm going to be the person who talks and I'm going to lead the conversation and let's play a game today and let's do something. My story is that I get very anxious doing that. Like, I have an ability for it. I certainly do. I have this propensity to be able to be charismatic in front of people and have them listen to me and all that. But if I'm not around people that I'm 100% comfortable with, it gets me very, 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 very nervous and anxious.
How do you do a camp?
Oh yeah, well that's something that happens, but it's a different role. You see, it's like I flip a switch. If I'm doing it at camp, I'm a camp counselor. If I'm doing it at NUN, I'm a delegate. But if I'm doing it in a social situation, I'm me. And then the switch isn't completely flipped. It's something like, well, maybe these roles that I play, assertiveness is completely normal, but maybe in my social life, it's not 100% there. And it makes me feel out of place would be the right phrase, probably. And it's not necessarily bad. It's like, it's like imposter syndrome.
Sí, total. Es que what you were saying, that like when you're a delegate, you're a camp counselor, I can absolutely relate. It's like sometimes I would dare to do things that usually people would never associate with me, because I feel like I'm a more confident version of myself, because you have like this disguise or like this character that you can get into and you just absorb the confidence of being somebody else. So like if there's negative consequences of it, Jose's not going to deal with them. You know, the counselor is going to deal with them or the delegate's going to deal with them, and then they're going to be gone. You see?
Yeah, but it's something more, it's emotional. When I'm a camp counselor and I have a problem, the problem still affects me exactly the same as it would if I was just me. The thing is that I have this role to play. I play it, and then I sort my emotions out elsewhere. If I'm being assertive at a social event and I'm me, I don't sort out my social emotions at that time. I have to kind of the way where I live my emotions at that moment. There's no delay between what's happening and when I deal with it. I think that's the thing. It's something like, and this is typical of me, and it's something that I've learned and grown a lot with, which is not everybody has to like me. Which is funny, because I was in high school and I don't think my class particularly loved me. But for some reason, after I left high school, I was like, why doesn't everybody love me? It's like, nobody has to love you, And so it's something like whenever I'm in a social situation and I get that feeling where I'm like, this person doesn't like me, it's like a bit of a shock. It's like when you're changing gears and the car just like and then it finishes changing. It's like that. So it's weird, but I'm working on it.
Fair enough.
And I'm entirely sure that it's an imposter syndrome that is typical of a person who is starting to get comfortable in that role.
Fair enough.
Okay. What about you?
Okay, my extroversion is moderately high. I'm in the 69th percentile. And my story with this is basically that I never saw myself as an extrovert. Ever. So I grew up I was the first child from, my parents, and I was also the first of the cousins from all of my mom's side. So basically, I was a baby surrounded by big people.
Yeah.
For me, it was always easier to just be around adults than to be around kids for my age. And there's a story for me being in like kindergarten, like the lowest you can be, maternal, that's how you say in Spanish.
Nursery.
Exactly. So it's like there was all this kid like peeing in themselves, and then there was like big chaos. And my mom and like the people who knew me since then were like, you just went to the teacher and you told her like, let me help you out. You know, I was like, this is a mess. Let's figure it out. You know, it's like I've always felt that the people like that are my age, maybe younger than me, especially when I was smaller than I am now, were a bit like immature, right? So that always made me feel like I was better when I was alone than when I was with them, because I didn't really understand the way they worked, and they really did not understand the way in which I worked. I've always been like very serious person. It's like I'm not the one that's gonna be joking around all the time, you know.
But same here.
With you?
Yeah, I've always been the quiet kid who all the kids were playing football and I was talking to their parents.
Bueno, exacto. And did you consider yourself to be like young, like introverted when you were young?
Yeah.
Or did you see yourself?
I started feeling like an extrovert when I went to MUN.
So
MUN opened up.
There comes the story. It's like I struggled so much with MUN when we started, and I remember we talked about it. For you, it was more of a first time, natural. You were like, "This is my jam."
Yeah.
For me, it was like first time we cry, second time we hate, third time we reconsider all of our life decisions and we want to quit. And my mom doesn't let me quit, so I stay, and then I fell in love with it. So it was a very different story for me.
Wow,
and I remember speaking about this with my MUN friends from college in Caracas. And I told them, who I am now is because of MUN. Like the extroverted, like socially dynamic, easygoing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
This I had to learn, because the only way to be a delegate in which people can trust in a matter of minutes is that if you transmit trust, you're nice, you listen to people, and you're also easygoing, you know? It's
but there's also that doctrine in MUN, which is fake it till you make it.
¿Verdad? Or fake it till you become it.
Yeah. So there's a real truth behind the fact that we might not have been extroverted when you were little.
Sí.
So we might have actually been pretty introverted, and then MUN just we had a pretty interesting study. Like before kids get into MUN, you do a test on them. You know, Big 5 personality test their extroversion levels, and then measure them 2 years after. Mm-hmm. That would be really cool.
That would be super interesting.
I'm going to do that just for kicks.
So I remember coming here to uni, and I think I've told this story before. I was talking to like very nice girl in my class, and she was like, yeah, but you're definitely an extrovert. And I'm like, no, I'm an introvert. I think I felt insulted by the fact that somebody had called me an extrovert when all of my life I'd picture myself as an introvert.
Are you calling me like a jock or something?
I was like, never. Me?
If I lived in the US, I wouldn't be a cheerleader.
Exactly.
Because that's what you feel like.
I'm not the one that goes to parties every night, you know. It's like I'm not the one who's gonna prefer to just go out instead of staying in. I love staying in.
Ari and I went to a party last night.
And I have a headache that it's killing me right now, okay? I started doing my best already. I'm like, oh, don't think about it. But yeah, it's like when I pictured an extrovert, like this person who was all the time, you know, was like around people and going to parties and like events and that. It's like
you realize that's fake.
Sí,
it's not extroversion.
Bueno, that's the whole point of this. It's like being an extrovert does not mean that. But for me, like this thing of the social batteries is very true. It's like there's a point in which, unless I'm with people who I'm very, very, very comfortable with, I can be having the time of my life, but I'm gonna be like, okay, enough. I had a beautiful time. Now I just need time for myself, in which I can reflect about how happy I was when I was with you.
Yeah, no. And look, the thing is, you can be an extrovert and still like your time alone.
Sí. But it's ambivert, you know. It's like
but without ambiversion, I'm a very high person, and I'm a very extroverted person. I'm 89th percentile, but I love my time alone as well. And it's maybe because, look, I don't use my time alone to sulk around. I use my time alone to play the guitar, or to record a podcast, or to read a really difficult book. So it's not necessarily that I'm like introverted in that sense. It's maybe more like I need higher levels of stimulation all the time.
there's also something. I don't know if you can categorize it as an introversion or extroversion, but now that I live alone, like really, really alone, I've noticed that I really appreciate company. It's like knowing that my mom was there in my house when I went back in summer, or like when I visit my grandma or my cousins here. It's like just knowing that they're there makes me feel very at ease. And when I'm alone, I can really enjoy it. I'm fine. But I tend to be way more anxious when there's nobody in my house than when there is someone. And I think it's very interesting because it's like I'm just in this alert mode constantly. It's like I cannot be too relaxed or too happy, because if then something bad happens, it's gonna affect me more than if I'm already feeling bad and then something bad happens. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but that goes into the next the next category, which is called neuroticism.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the kind of thing that you need to get into a mental institution. In the extreme, of course, that's probably it. Ariana, I feel, does not like the fact that she got a high score in this.
You see, it's like really my scores are not beautiful. I've got very low conscientiousness. I've got very high neuroticism. I'm the 74th percentile. Agreeableness, maybe I'm like way too nice to people sometimes, or like they can take advantage of me, or I don't look out after myself. It's like you don't like to see this, these things in the test. That's not what I expected, But in the end,
absolutely true. But
go ahead.
Again, do you have a good life?
I have a beautiful life.
Then again, this is the eyes with which you see the world, and the fact that you have a good life, even though this is your perception of the world, is remarkable. That's the headline. That's the tweet.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so don't feel,
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like now I look at it and I'm like, okay, we have the shit. Now let's see what we're gonna do with it. You
exactly.
See? It's like, I can do this, for example, which I was studying Jose before. It's like, even if I'm having a very interesting day after very little sleep, this is going to be something that no matter how bad I feel or how tired I am, I'm going to love to do.
Yeah, recording is always...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jose and I only see each other under this circumstance, right? So I also...
maybe at a party, but like...
But like very, very not often, right? So it's like, I also associate you and your presence with like something inherently positive, right?
Aww.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah,
so it's
me
like
too, like honestly.
These spaces for me are like sacred. It's like I love spending my Friday nights, evenings, whatever, doing this, and
same.
I want to keep doing this.
It reminds me of World School Debate Championship.
I want to keep doing this for a very long time, and this is like our baby now. You see, so it's like if being crazy makes me to have a need to just spend my Friday evenings talking about how I feel and putting all of my stress into a project that's gonna become something beautiful in the end, then let's welcome it. Let's embrace it. We love.
We do. So, neuroticism. Neuroticism is your vulnerability and then reaction to negative emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
So withdrawal is how sensitive you are to different types of negative emotion, and then volatility is how deep and violent or extreme your reaction is to that negative.
You haven't told us what's your...
my score. So I'm 59th percentile in neuroticism, which is average. It's actually, I think, above average for men. So females tend to be higher neuroticism than males. Typical scores in neuroticism for women is 60th percent, and for men it's about 58 or something. So I'm pretty average. And then I have in my withdrawal it's 72%, which means I'm a lot more. I feel a lot of negative emotion in different parts, but my volatility is average as well. It's 43%, which means it's pretty normal. For
me, it's the other way around. Well, no, not the other way around. I have a moderately high withdrawal and moderately high volatility. So I do both.
You're in like all of it.
I'm in the whole, neuroticism, the whole thing. I'll take it. Give it to me, I'll deal with it.
It's a decent level of neuroticism to have,
Yeah, it's high. Everything's high.
No, it could be a lot higher.
Fair enough. That's true.
Like you get to 80-90% neuroticism, and you're talking to a person who has the psychotic break when they have the wrong kind of coffee. You have maybe you have a kind of bad day.
See.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, for me, it has to do with people. So I think that neuroticism, if something like bad happens, like, I don't know, my computer breaks or I lose something, usually I don't tend to be very affected by those type of things. Like, it's not necessarily that I'm going to be chill, but especially now that I live alone, it's like, okay, now it's fine. We just have to deal with it. It's like, what do I have to do?
Yeah.
But when it comes to people and emotions and things that people do that affect me, really very sensitive. And I go again to my relationship. It's discussions that come over and over again to, like, things that we have as a couple. It's like, there's X behavior that it's natural for him and it's part of his personality, which for me, I would just behave completely different. It's like, that's what I would expect. And he doesn't have to change the way which he is. I just need also to make an effort to understand it, right? But like, there can be just this one little thing that he didn't hug me before he left, or like he didn't tell me X or Y.
Yeah.
That's gonna fuck me so much. It's like, it really gets to me in a way that's a bit like maybe exponential sometimes.
Yeah.
So for me, like, that's one of the ways in which I see neuroticism a bit. And I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
I will jump in if you
go ahead.
For you to remember that this is also something that's really cool. Again, it's about how you see the world. Mm-hmm. So imagine it's like a superpower. You have a magnet for shady shit. Mm-hmm. Okay, especially with people, which is pretty useful when you think about it. So one of the things that I have in my relationship is that whenever we have an argument that resurfaces a lot, it's not because we're being petty and we're bringing it up. Mm-hmm. It's because both of us, or at least one of us at a time, because it can be that maybe both of us bring it to the table, but generally it's like, hey, this is bothering me again. It's that at least one of us is seeing that this is important. Not necessarily that it's bad, it might be, but that it's important, and it's generally speaking never about what's going on in the surface. So it's almost never that I didn't give you a hug. It's almost always the something else, deeper. Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend and I have this thing where if it repeats more than 3 or 4 times, we sit down and talk about it deeply. Like, let's get to the bottom of this, because I don't want to. Like, for example, once it was a person that was bothering the both of us, and we were like, okay, we agree we're not the problem. This person is the problem. How are we gonna fix it? And so it was really cool to like put that flip on it, instead of both of us feeling the grief of the problem. Like, oh, I've been talking about my girlfriend about this, and I think I'm gonna have to mention this again in this argument, and I don't really want to, because I know that it's gonna be so freaking annoying to have to do this again, and she's gonna react badly, and I'm gonna react badly, and it's gonna be like, and it's like, wait, breathe in a little bit. And it's like, you feel that this is wrong, right? Yes. I feel like this is wrong. Yes. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? It's like, okay, where does this come from? And it's like, oh, it comes from this. And then you have an honest conversation about it. And generally speaking, you reach, at least in my case, you reach a difference of opinion. A clear, concise difference of opinion that can be abridged. That can be sewn together if need be, or that can be left and said, you know what, this is something that we
agree to disagree.
Or agree to disagree, or you know what, we can talk about this when we have to, and maybe we don't need to get into this argument today. We can, we'll write it down somewhere and keep it in mind, like this is something that we have to talk about at some point, but maybe today we just don't have the energy for it. And I think that's one of the things that happens to me with narcissism is that I have an average level of volatility, which means that I get that urge to like run away and be like, you know what, I'm angry today. Fuck off.
For me, it's the other way around. It's like, you know what, I'm fucking angry today, so I need to talk about it with you. And the other person will be like, no, I don't want to talk until I don't figure out here first. So that fucks me up even more.
I'm very patient, and my girlfriend has said this repeatedly. I envy your patience, and it's like I notice that she's being, let's put it that way, bratty, like that I'm angry, I want to show it to the world, and I'm like, okay, I'm like Rocky. I don't mind getting some blows in my face before I get to the truth. And so I let her, and I let her, and I let her, and I let her, and I'm like, is this really it? What's her problem? What's going on? And she's like, huh. And it goes away. And like she burns the fuel out, and it's over. But I think it has to do a lot with my volatility, that I have those moments where that happens, where I'm like, oh shit, I want to walk out that door right now so much. And it's like, oh, and then you're like, wait, the rational part of your head is like, breathe.
I know.
And then you get through it. And it's like, and then afterwards, it's always super cute. You know, after you have a discussion that's actually important, you get to a point where you're like, I'm so glad that you is this human being that I cuddle with every night. Yeah.
Fair enough. And we were also talking about how Jose's girlfriend is very low in neuroticism.
Oh, my girlfriend is, I think, 3% neuroticism.
Oh, de verdad?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I think I have her scores here, because I have this test. If you do it, you can actually
partner it up with
with somebody else, which is really cool, because it tells you, like, if there's a really big difference between you and your partner, how to solve it, or what to really, yeah. So your typical average in agreeableness, and your partner is high, and it's all there. And so my girlfriend's neuroticism, and it tells you the implications of orderliness as a couple, the implications of for example, Marie and I are both high in extroversion. So implications of extroversion as a couple: you're high in extroversion, your partner is high in extroversion. As a couple, this means that your relationship will tend to embody the virtues and faults of high extroversion in general. Like it goes really into detail. And so in the end, let me see if I can find neuroticism.
She's second.
Your partner is very low. It's 2%. My girlfriend is 2% in neuroticism, which is crazy low. People who are very low in neuroticism tend to be emotionally stable and to experience less negative emotion. They may have more positive outlook on life, especially if they're also extroverted, which she is. So they're rarely focused on negative elements and anxieties and uncertainties of the past, present, and future.
For me, it's now that you read the description, it's like I've noticed that in my brain there's this pattern of I need to have a big existential problem all the time. First, it was this thing of like, if I wanted to leave the country or not. So that took me like a year. Then it was the existential identity questioning when it came to Madrid. It's like, who really am I in this whole thing? And my brain really cannot stop. It's like, okay, I need to figure it out.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I need to figure it out, but all time, like, I wake up and I'm like, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm like, what does it mean? How do I feel? Who am I? And I'm like, you're not gonna.
It's not in the toothbrush.
Stop it. Sometimes I'm like, how do I turn it off? It's like, how do I stop thinking for a bit and just give myself a break? Because sometimes the headaches that I have, not this one, but in general, it's like I'm thinking so much that my brain's like, stop.
Well, Mel Gibson has a really good video. She has a book about this, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mm-hmm. And basically it's whenever you get into a spiral like that, you have to reset your head. You know, so imagine it like the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. Until you break a cup, the guy will keep on, being crazy. So what you need to do is you basically, you're having this moment, you're like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you pick a task, any task, whatever you want, and you do it. And you kind of, get the reins of your mind controlled again. But I understand what you mean. I mean, again, I'm average in neuroticism, so I have both sides. I can see towards your side. I can see towards my girlfriend's side. Where I'm like, there's moments. For example, I played a soccer game last week and we were losing really badly. But one of the advantages of losing is that you don't really care anymore. And so I get really nervous when I'm playing soccer and I'm goalkeeping and somebody comes at me and the initial pass to get out of the goalkeeping area for me is super, a difficult moment. Like there's a lot of pressure and stress and everything. And it gets the better of me a lot. And then when we were losing, it's like, who the fuck cares? We're going to lose anyways. And I did it perfectly. Like, I remember I passed one and somebody said, beautiful. I was like, damn.
You chilled and then you were enjoying your game.
Exactly. And I think that's, so if you're high in neuroticism, just try to change the context of what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. See it as a magnet for bad stuff, if you ever have one. Like, maybe what's going on in your relationship is something leading to something important that will save you in the future. And, you know, then all that pain and anxiety is worth it. And then you can also use it as like, sometimes you need to stop it and
just do something else.
There's ways to do it.
And that's why for me it's like so important to like exercise or like cook, stuff like that, because like really when I'm very like immersed in that mood or that anxiety, there's few things that really like get me off. And for example, when I manage to complete a workout, working out when I'm anxious is super hard. Really like super hard for me. It's like I want to stop, but I know it's better if I continue. So it's really like this. But you can stop because you don't want to keep going. You're tired, but then it's like if I finish, I'm gonna feel better. But you can stop, but then you can keep. Te lo juro que a veces me pasa eso, and it's for me. It's like, bo, stop. Like just concentrate on something specific about what you're doing, and then get through it. And when you're done, you're gonna feel so much better about it. Pero es como esa cosa de que everything in my head is debatable, and it's super annoying.
Well, one of the things that my sister just sent me an Instagram the other day, like a reel. And wow, I said on Instagram, what an old man. My sister sent me a reel the other day, and it was something like, what if I told you that I was recording for the floor? Would you be able to take that off your head now? The fact that I'm recording for the floor. That's what an intrusive thought is like. The fact that I'm telling you that I'm recording for the floor, from the floor, means that it's impossible for you to think of anything else. Now, this is what you do with intrusive thoughts. Instead of being focused on that, what if I told you, for example, you know that I'm recording for the floor, but this is a really good view of the window. And then it quiets down, and you can think of the window, and you can listen to the person. So it's more, especially with intrusive thoughts like that, and in little battles in your own head. It can either be wipe yourself off it like quickly, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just reset, or focus, because that's just attention that's not being put somewhere else. So you can redirect that attention to something else. So instead of focusing if you're gonna finish or not, you can focus, if you have a mirror where you work out, you can focus on whether you are doing your technique correctly.
See, or just like, for example, what I do, it's like I think about the muscle that I'm like working. So it's like if I'm doing biceps, for example, it's like I really focus on doing the exercise with the muscle that I want to target, right? So that really, it's like a very useful mental technique for me. But you know, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm like,
yeah, understandable.
But bueno, we're still missing one. I forgot.
Yeah, the last category, openness to experience, which for me is the most. We're gonna do an entire episode about this at some other point.
Fair enough. So what's your score?
I'm in the 96th percentile for openness to experience, which means that I'm very, very open to experience. Anybody want to do something, call me. That's basically it.
I have 57th percentile, so I'm quite average for that.
Well,
for example, like I think my boyfriend is very high in openness to experience.
Definitely.
And I don't know, Maria. I think she's average as well.
My girlfriend is high in openness to experience
really?
as well. Yeah, so she has.
She's very compatible in that one.
Yeah, she's 85th percentile, so she's a bit less open than I am, but she's very open. There's two sides. There's intellect and openness. So intellect would be openness to ideas. Openness would be like experiences. So I'm 92nd percentile in intellect, which means that you're high in the aspect. It means that I enjoy taking like new ideas, engage in like philosophical discussion. The podcast, and I get frustrated with people that don't figure things out. Like if you're stuck in your little world and you can't. It happens to me sometimes with my friends when they don't know something that I know about, like typical trivia questions that like, you don't know who this person is, and I'm like,
I think the other day we were speaking about Kendall Jenner, and I was like, okay, for those who don't know, and you were like, who wouldn't know who Kendall Jenner is? And
yeah. I'm
glad your dad was here, because he was like, I don't know who it is. I was like, there you go.
Yeah, or like one time I asked my friends, like, who's Winston, do you know who Winston Churchill is?
Yes.
And like most of my friends were like, I think so. Like, I'm like, how do you not know who he is? He was a great man. Like, you know, typical. And I get really
passionate
about knowledge. And then there's intellect. Well, my girlfriend is like 67%, so she's an intellectual person.
Oh, me too.
But she's not super intellectual, and it's totally good. You're exactly the same score.
See?
That's awesome. And then I'm in openness, I'm 95th percentile, which is
very high.
It's very high.
It's impressively high.
Yes. It means that people who score higher in the aspect of openness are creative, artistic, imaginative, and reflective, although they can also sometimes be impractical and unusual.
And maybe impulsive. No?
Yes. You're likely... Like, I have creative outlets. So, yes, I learned how to paint to draw when I was pretty... Actually, I'm going to see if I can do this.
It's like it says that they may enjoy an outlet for the creative ability, but will not wither away without it.
Exactly. So I don't need it, but I have these little diaries since I was like 14, and they're all full of pictures and drawing
and letters. Now you're publishing your letters.
I'm publishing a lot of, like, actually in this, I think in this book, I wrote, like, these are pages and pages of me writing and drawing, and actually my friends tend to draw here, which is something I really loved. Like, my friends would take a page from my book and just write whatever they wanted, which is one of the best traditions that I ever had. I would write when I had books that I was reading. I would
like write down the things that you like.
Exactly.
I should do that.
I wrote one which is called La Ciudad de Mis Sueños, and I think I wrote it in this book.
But yeah.
Like, look at this. Who are you? What the hell? Where did I write that?
But I also have that, and I have it recent.
Really? 14-year-old me just drawing stuff.
But well, and for example, I have it's a typical average openness. It's just 44th percentile, right? So basically, I can enjoy creative things, but they're not the main recipients of my attention or like my effort or my talent, right? Which is completely fine. I would just do it use it for something else. But it's very interesting to see. It's like, also, do you think like crazy experiences for you are something that you're like always looking out for?
No, but I did have this discussion the other day with someone, and it's weird. It was about, somebody asked me if I wanted to go into diplomacy, and they realized that I didn't want to go into diplomacy forever. Mm-hmm. And they're like, why? And I was like, look, I did MUN, and I was pretty good at it. And I got from delegate to chair to subsecretary general to secretary general to organizer of another MUN to participating in it internationally to doing one in university to organizing one in university. I did it all. Mm-hmm. And I got to the top of that hierarchy. I did everything. I was like, okay, next thing. And my mom used to tell me that I used to do that a lot, that I would get a Rubik's Cube. And I would do the Rubik's Cube every minute of every day until I finished it. And then after it was done, next thing. And the same thing happens. I'm at camp right now, and I love camp. And I think it's a really new, different experience for me. But I'm in the first part. I'm Seguia, and I'm going to be, someday I'm going to be a vaquiano. And then after that, coordinator. And then after coordinator, I'm going to be a director. I'm not going to stop until I get to the top of that at some point. And then at some point, I'm going to look at it and say, maybe I'm done with this. And that doesn't mean that I don't go back to MUN. I told you today that I had a MUN-style discussion. And next week, I'm planning on Thursday to go see my friends from MUN because I'm technically still a member, but I don't participate in it actively. And it's not like it goes away. It's just integrated into me. Every new experience just builds a little bit of who I am. So it's not like, let's throw myself off an airplane with a parachute on, or like, it's more like I want to master as many things as I can, like the ukulele or the guitar or writing or drawing. Or they're all just experiences that I want to get to the bottom of.
Fair enough. I understand.
I've never been able to articulate that.
But you did it perfectly.
Yeah, thank you. Articulating stuff is something else. Psychology. So
yeah, now you have a very thorough insight into.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tidbit about the next episode, which is that we're gonna talk about. I had a problem with my openness to experience, which is that it makes me investigate ideas that go contrary to ideas that I already have, and it's very stressful. Okay, so basically, that's gonna be our next episode, and we're gonna see it very, very soon. So yeah, remember that no one gets away with anything, and even if you try to be somebody that you're not, it's gonna come back to you. So just embrace it and believe when we say that there's something beautiful in it. So just take advantage of it. Remember, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, and now also
YouTube.
on YouTube. If you aren't interested in this personality test, it's called understandmyself.com. It's developed by Jordan B. Peterson and some of his colleagues, and we highly recommend it. We'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yo! Que burda de buena pesar que fue muy largo.
¿Cuánto duró esto? ¿Como 1 hora?
1 hora y 8.
Mamá, wea.
¿Estás cansada? It kind of energized me a little bit.
¿Sí?
Sí.
Es lo que te digo.